Recording.
Welcome back to Spring Break Extra, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome back Anthony, who last time brought us a snapshot of royal weddings and Glastonbury and cricket tours and even being strapped to Admiralty Arch, I seem to remember, for about 11 hours with only a Fosca tea and some butties. It brought a great response. As you know, Spring Break was all about pausing and resetting. And lots of people really appreciated Anthony's time, sharing his insight. There was great comments about people loving how you trusted your gut and how you took a risk. But also there was a real preparedness to some of your stuff as well as the creativity. So lots and lots of appreciation. And some stuff too there around relationships, I seem to remember as well. So not just the technical, how do I take the perfect shot? But I think making pals with some old man up on the moors so you could shoot a shot from his bins or something. So lots of humanity and lots of appreciation. One of the things that came back was, well, where does your inspiration come from? So we thought to kick off Spring Break Extra episode 5, we'd kick off there. So inspiration. You inspired so many others last time with your great talk, Anthony. Where did your inspiration originally come from?
Hi,
and welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having us back. Good to see you again.
You too.
Inspiration. I'd always had an interest in art and design. I used to want to be an illustrator originally, so I was always drawing and looking at images and things. And it was probably when I got to around sort of early teens, when I started really getting into music and looking at the photography in music magazines, and sort of being inspired by those images. I found 2 images which are probably the most inspirational, which I'll try and share with you now. So the first one is, I'm sure you know, Diego Maradona during the World Cup. And it just always stood out as, well, you can see it's an amazing picture. You've got 6 Spanish defenders, Maradona's attacking them. It's like one man against the whole of the team. And I could never figure out how that image was made. I used to go to football matches. I used to look at pictures in the newspapers, but I could never understand how that had been created. And it's only until years later you realise that someone's higher up. And it was actually just after a free kick was about to be taken. So that was actually a defensive wall that's just broken apart as a short free kick has been taken. And that's why you've got so many people sort of bunched together. That's what makes it quite unique, I think. And that's why it stands out. So that's one that I always think back as probably my favourite sport picture. And talking about the music photography, the picture of Kurt Cobain, I think this is probably in NME or Melody Maker, one of those magazines at the time. I had it as a poster on the wall. And just everything about it, I think, is brilliant, especially for a teenage boy. I mean, the guy's upside down, it's rock and roll, flying through the air, you've got movement, it's dynamic. And the composition, years later, I look back on it, and it's like the perfect sort of Y sort of shape. You've got these 3 triangles, all pointing to the middle. And that's not something you can compose and think about. It's just something you capture, and you happen to, whether the photographer saw that or saw it afterwards, I don't know, but yeah, I think that's so that's where my inspiration came from as a youngster. It encouraged me to sort of get out with a camera, take pictures, and look at maybe a different angle. They don't always have to be standing the right way up. Upside down is just as good sometimes. So that's where my inspiration comes from.
2 amazing shots. The guitar one as well, when I look at that, my eyes are drawn to the guitar. And of course, because he's that way round and being left-handed, it kind of looks like the guitar's the right way round and he's the right way round.
Yeah. It works on so many different levels. It's just a great picture, yeah.
It's brilliant. Another question that really shone through is, some of the amazing access and some of the amazing, I guess, privilege that you've had to spend time with some people in some maybe limited access sort of areas. So I think you said you have 1 or 2 pics that might.
Yeah, there's a
That's
few
all.
pictures that I just thought I'd put together. Again, I'll share my screen with you. Mostly through my time at Press Association when I first started in the Southwest, shortly after the royal wedding. So I used to do a lot of jobs with the royals down that way, Charles and Camilla, especially. And this was just taken on a little visit. I think she was meeting somebody in a, I don't know, village hall, something like that. But I just always love the light. It's a nice picture. It almost looks like she's sitting for a portrait. The light's so nice and the pose is so nice. And it's just an example of the difference you can get when there's just one person in the room. So the subject, in this case, the Duchess, she's much more relaxed, and she knows you're there to take a picture, but she'll realise it's a nice picture, and she might just pause for a minute, allow you to take that picture. Whereas if there was more people there, or if you were outside at an event, she probably wouldn't stop and pause. She'd be more likely to sort of ignore the media and just carry on. But that's a picture I always liked. I thought it was quite a nice portrait of her. So as an example. This was taken during a banquet in Turkey during a royal visit. So it's only during state banquets when the Queen wears the diamond tiara. And this was taken just from the side as another photographer's flash was going off. So that's what gives the kind of almost like studio light effect from one side. But it just really brings out the jewellery. And I know the press office and the royals really like the picture because it highlights the jewels and it's a nice picture. So that worked quite well. I can't remember if I showed you this last time or not, but this is when we used to shoot investitures at Buckingham Palace. So we have a camera that's like fixed into a pillar on the wall and we operate it from the other side of the wall. And normally you just do the Queen pins a badge on, shakes her hand, you do 2 pictures for every person. But this woman turned up and started having a good old chat with the Queen. And I just thought the similarity between them and the way I've never seen anybody point the finger at the Queen while they're speaking to them. I just thought like the walking stick, the pointing the finger, you kind of think like, who's in charge here? Which one of these, it's just sort of like a mad balance. So it just always amused me. I always like that picture. This was Obama's first visit at Downing Street. So that was the Foreign Office where they make the conferences. Yeah. This is one of, I think, Gordon Brown's first cabinet meetings following a cabinet reshuffle. So we used to go into the cabinet room and you'd get maybe 30 seconds to do a few pictures and they just talk about breakfast and a cup of tea and you'd walk around the room, bish, bash, bosh, and then you'd be out. The reason I like this is it got used quite big in the papers because it was a new cabinet, and every time you get a new prime minister and a new cabinet, they get to choose the artwork in Downing Street. So all the paintings on the wall, it's the first time that they've been seen in the cabinet room. So a lot of the newspapers did a story saying this is a portrait of such and such, this clock is from here, and so there's like a historical context to it as well. This is a similar kind of time. And again, going back to the dangerous thinking, rather than just waiting by the fireplace for an official handshake picture, shoot the moment they walk through the door because you don't know what you're going to see. And I thought the Hillary Clinton, Gordon Brown sort of speaking was quite a nice image as it is. But then you've got this chap in the corner in the painting who seems to be sort of like gesturing towards them in the top right. And then just around the corner, you've got Ban Ki-moon and Karzai, the Afghan president, just about to sort of creep in. And they're almost like, are we allowed to come in yet? Are we important enough to enter at this point? And so I thought it gave like a really nice sort of story. This is just an inside access one. Again, this was William and Harry's first royal trip together. So they both went to Africa and supported a number of different charities over there. But looking back now, it just shows that they did actually get on and they did used to have fun. And I suppose like as the years go by, the more poignant this picture seems, kind of, there's a snake in the face and I don't know. There's the whole sort of Adam and Eve, the snake, that kind of stuff. I don't know. I may have showed you this one last time as well, but this was the Pope in Oxford. And the reason I like this picture is because the chap who's kissing the ring is my uncle. He's the Bishop of Birmingham. Wow. Again, behind the scenes, this was during the World Cup bid in Zurich. We were just waiting for an event to take place. I noticed 3 of them speaking together. And again, it's just like catching a little moment. It's relaxed. It's not the sort of picture you'd normally see presented to the media. but it does show a bit of sort of behind the scenes, I don't know, relationship between the three people. And obviously at the time, the Prime Minister, Prince William, David Beckham, they're probably like the three most famous men in the country at the time, perhaps. These are one of my favorite. Sorry?
I was going to say definitely one of my wife's three different people.
Yeah. This is one of my favourite jobs every summer when we used to have the garden parties at Buckingham Palace. So the Queen would come out and certain guests would be brought out of the crowd, and the Queen would sort of come along, meet them, greet them, shake hands. The cakes are amazing. Best cakes you'll ever have. Tea's quite nice. Yeah, really nice fun days. And it's just a British picture. It shows off like royalty, Englishness, garden parties, top hats, tails. It's kind of all there, really.
Grandeur.
This was like a nice little moment. When I was there to do something else, but it was the Duke's birthday, and the Queen was actually presenting him with some insignia as part of an official thing. I don't know, but I just thought it was quite a nice moment between the two of them. You rarely see them so relaxed and smiley, and just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, Giles and Camilla just messing about. What can I say? Lords, the home of cricket, my favourite place to be. During the Ashes, and I was doing the rota for the Queen. I was there to shoot the cricket as well. So sort of as soon as lunch began, I had to run upstairs, take my clothes off, put a suit on, change my gear, get back down to the pavilion, shoot the Queen, and then change again, back shooting the cricket. This is the first royal trip abroad with the little boy, George, and that was to Australia. A bit of a Marilyn Monroe sort of moment.
Yeah.
This is the same trip. Don't know if I mentioned this last time, but they hate the press, and they kept us waiting so long. They were about an hour and a half late, and the sun was setting so quickly that the photographers had to lie on their stomachs, because all those little shadows you see poking up at the bottom, that's the photographers' heads and flashes. So if we'd have been standing up, they would have been in shade. And they left it that late. The sun was so low, we literally had to lie in the dirt like this to shoot them. I think they found it quite amusing. Again, this is another picture, two of the most famous women in the world together. I think she received some damehood for some charity work. The poppies at the Tower. This was just again, I was at some event at St. Paul's. It was some commemoration, D-Day thing, something maybe. But over my shoulder, all the bishops are in the sort of back vestry getting ready. I just thought it was quite comical to see all these people in such traditional regalia, but they still have a selfie still, It's a picture of Charles. This is quite a recent, one of the last jobs I did, maybe royal jobs in the Northwest, and this was used on his biography recently on the front cover. A couple of pictures. This is one you'll see all the time, and you'll always know it's my picture because the traffic cone is right between the heads. If you look, there's a traffic cone in the window. So I always know it's mine. I'm the only one that got a traffic cone in. Garden parties and Obama.
Powerful pictures.
So yeah, that was the inside access stuff. Just a little behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes talk. So bizarrely, ironically, perversely, we go from this fantastic kind of ultimate access that you've had to palaces and lords and state rooms and banquet rooms and cabinet offices, no less. What's the access been like for the last 3 months? I'm guessing there was no Glastonbury this year, and not the same level of access, maybe even no entry in some respects. So what have you been up to, mate, for the last few months?
Yeah, well, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. Not only is there not much going on, what is going on is there's very limited access to. So the core of my work, obviously, is football, which is one of the first things to finish. And then also anything events-based, gatherings, so concerts, parties, I don't know, it could be anything really where people are together. It's generally what we cover, So yeah, that's just not been happening. So I've been keeping myself busy. I still want to be out there taking pictures. I still want to be out there telling stories. and I just think it's the most incredible time we're probably going to live through in our lives almost. You know, it's quite often when you're in the middle of something, it's hard to see the bigger picture, but maybe in 10, 20, 50 years, it'll be seen as like a big thing. The whole lockdown, the pandemic, and the way it's been reacted to. There may be more in the future. It may happen again, and if that's the case, then this will be the first one. So I think it's always going to be really important. So I've just been trying to document it really as a photographer. So I've still been out taking pictures, and I've still been sending them out to the newspapers and to the magazines. But rather than being commissioned by agencies to go and shoot these things, I generally just kind of going out doing this by myself and then putting the pictures out on spec, they'd say, on, you know, speculating that they'd be used. And things do get used and they get picked up. So there has been like a little bit of income from it, but nothing compared to how it would be normally, you know. But it's been really nice at the same time. Sorry, say again.
I was going to say, so what have been the highlights of the, you know, that?
Well, to be honest, the highlight has been spending time with the children. I've got, you know, my little girl's at school and my lad goes to nursery, and I'm so busy normally, daytimes, evenings. It's been really nice to spend some time with them. Yeah, so, and I'll probably never get that opportunity again, just to spend that period of time with them. So that's been fantastic. And also, I've noticed, sort of in the wider sense of things, a really good, strong community, sort of a community spirit coming together, especially following sort of like Brexit and things that had gone on previously. It was almost like the country needed a bit of a shake-up and something to bring people together. And I think this has done that. And just by going out and seeing what's been going on and what people have been doing has kind of made me feel quite positive. You know, there's so many good people out there and they're doing so much great work that I maybe wouldn't have been aware of before. And I certainly wouldn't have been able to highlight before the way that I've been doing. So it's been really nice to do that and to get the feedback from them people as well and the appreciation. And yeah, it's been nice. So that's been good.
So have you managed to capture any of that in terms of, you know, maybe some of the stuff that we don't see or that those regular folks don't see when we're, you know, we're locked down or whatever? Have you
yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, obviously when the story broke, it was all to do with schools and hospitals, I guess, were first.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in like the climate today, in the way that the media is regarded, access just wasn't made available to anybody. A couple of the hospitals might have had their own photographer take a few pictures, which they gave out as handouts. But yeah, I remember one week early on, I think we emailed 35 different trusts, NHS trusts, and I think we barely got a reply from any of them. There was just nothing happening. So although that was like almost what you'd say the coalface, that was where the story was happening. It wasn't being covered there, and you might get one TV crew allowed in, and that'd be it really. So you had to sort of like shift your gaze really and look at what else was going on, you know, around that. What's got the impact on the community? What's the impact on these people? Not necessarily how they're being treated, but what's happening to everybody during this time. So that was where my sort of focus was shifted. And obviously you remember there was the food banks, the shortages, supermarkets going, you know. So a lot of the food banks were sort of inundated with people being vulnerable, people that can't go shopping, people who rely on food places, they couldn't get out to get them. So there was kind of lots of different stories developing all the time, I think. And then every couple of weeks, the guidance would change. You might have to wear masks, or you couldn't go here, or, you know, you can meet with a few people or stay this far. So it was always like an evolving story, really. So every time something happened, I'd just try and tell that story in some way, or find someone that was connected to it. And yeah, that's what I've been doing, really. And again, I've got a whole load of pictures that I could just quickly flick through to give you an idea of some of those things. If you'd like
really
to.
nice to wrap things up. Maybe you can give us our first sort of documented view on these crazy times. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure as well that for one of our real avid viewers, Janet Woods, I believe you you were down at Anfield on one particular evening taking.
I was, and as a Blue, as a City fan, it was hard to take, but I had to put my hands up and say, "Well played." What can I do?
Yeah.
Can you say?
Well, listen, take us through the shots. And,
Yeah, let's have a look at these pictures now. I'll just pull them up for you.
Finding out what you've been up to.
So, this is. Sorry, that's not that. I'll close that one down. So these are in chronological order. Just to give you an idea of what I've been doing as the story's been changing. And again, I'll flick through them as quick as I can. So first of all, I think this is the first football match I shot where I saw somebody wear a mask in the crowd. So this was, 7th of March.
Yeah.
Just starting to become aware then that this might not just be something that's happening elsewhere, you know, it's going to be close to home.
Yeah.
And that was shortly followed by, obviously, the panic buying, toilet paper, pasta, all began to disappear. Shortly after, the weekend after, I was due to be shooting at Sheffield Wednesday, but the match was cancelled. So that was the week that football was cancelled. So instead, I just found a young lad outside having a kickabout on the park with his lad. And that seemed quite normal at the time. And yet, 2 weeks later, that itself would have been quite rare.
That's bizarre.
There wasn't much I could do, so I thought the famous clock, 2 minutes, 1 minute past 3, no football being played. Just as this was before the lockdown, but they're advising people to maybe wash your hands, stay at home. So I did go into Manchester, and you could tell it was getting a bit quieter. Things started to pop up like this. Again, I've been trying to fill my time. If it's a nice light, nice evening, I'll do a few pictures, so just a few shots of Manchester. This is something I did down in Birmingham one day. People were sort of taking over the streets. There was no shoppers out. There was no one around, so people were just out. Kind of like a giant playground almost for some people,
Urban jungle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this was the night that they said basically the pubs are closing, so it's your last night to go out and have a drink. So these
Is that the magnificent Stalybridge buffet bar?
It is the buffet bar in Stalybridge. If you ever pass in, do stop in, get some black peas. So this was kind of last orders, closing up at the buffet bar. Make sure you get a few pints in because it's your last chance for a drink.
Yeah.
Again, just a shot of Manchester, nice light. So this was when the sort of supermarkets queuing had sort of kicked off, but now they were saying if you're an NHS worker, you can show a pass, you can get in ahead of people. So they were starting to sort of like manage the situation.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there was this like huge outpouring of support for the NHS. These were popped up outside hospitals all across Manchester. I'm not sure if it was the same group behind it, but sort of showing that support. Food parcels are starting to be put together in supermarkets for vulnerable people. This was the first day that schools were closed. I'm just driving through Bradford, and yeah, school's out. What are you going to do? Get the quad, get your pony. Happy days. And yeah, big story. McDonald's was about to close, so everybody had to go and get the McDonald's before it did.
Oh, crazy.
I'm sure you've all done Joe Wicks. I'm sure you've all been involved. Kept the nation fit for at least a couple of weeks.
Well, Alexander doing the stuff there. Wonderful.
Rainbows. You've probably noticed that my children feature quite heavily in these pictures, and they have featured quite heavily on some of the BBC websites as well, so you have to forgive me for that.
I know that you look after them with the royalty side.
Oh, yeah. They get their share of the 30p, don't worry. Again, Manchester. A few trips into Manchester just to see what's going around. Never short of a few lunatics in the centre of town.
Yeah.
Playgrounds, swings taken down, sunsets over Manchester. So yeah, working from home, all of a sudden people that had never worked from home before had started working from home. So I just thought that was quite amusing. That's my father-in-law just perched on a stool ordering, 2 million cardboard boxes for one of the biggest cardboard box producing companies in the world, and he's just there in the kitchen, like tapping away. It's just bizarre. This was a local company that makes chefs' aprons. and they
Okay.
decided to turn the production over to scrubs. So this was, again, early on when the NHS had announced, look, we're thinking of opening these huge hospitals. We're going to need someone to produce all these scrubs and things. So yeah, lots of businesses were getting involved like that. Again, the sort of thank you messages around Manchester for the NHS. Empty streets. Quite often I go into Manchester at 9 o'clock in the morning, like rush hour, and just see what's happening, what's around. Social distancing. This is probably like one of the first times I've seen social distancing where people are visiting but at the doorway and they're staying away, and like that seems to become quite common, but at the time it seemed quite unique. Again, homeschooling. I'm sure we all got involved in that at some point. And then the entertainment side of it. This guy, Jason Baird, over in Stockport, decided that during his 1 hour's exercise, he was going to dress up as Spider-Man, entertain the kids. And it's fantastic. Everybody loved him. He was just running around the streets, waving. And that story got picked up and ran quite well. And it did start like a bit of a trend. You found like the similar thing was happening elsewhere. The army here's another example. Someone dressed as a bear locally. Doing the same sort of thing. The Queen's speech. This was when the Queen announced that basically, we're going through hard times, but we'll all be in this together. And that was my dog looking on, forlorn.
Looking sad there.
Yeah. So this is when the food orders and things started going a bit mad. This is a local veg shop that started producing food boxes, and they were delivering them to people that were isolating, basically couldn't get out. So I spent a bit of time with them, seeing what they've been up to. Just random things you come across, just the sunbathing outside the houses because you're not allowed to go anywhere but still want to get out, read the paper, have a chat with the neighbours. Obviously not much fun if you're a kid. And keep calm, carry on. I just don't know, interesting things. I thought this couple were great. These two kids, the mum and dad, who decorated the house over in Rochdale, and they'd come out to do the clapping at 8 o'clock in the evening. So I thought that was quite nice. Again, what are you going to do? You've got an hour to exercise. Sun's out, guns out. And yeah, these test and trace, centres started popping up. Obviously, the impact on the economy, the high streets, queuing for banks, empty markets, empty places.
Ghost times, aren't they?
Yeah, again, this was back in Manchester. I don't think it ever was really operational. This always made me laugh. This is just Market Street, Manchester. Shoppers. Again, you started seeing lots of messages. This was in a nursing home, so all the messages of support that was sent to the nursing home, they started displaying them in the windows. Testing. Supermarkets, follow the arrows. My little lad's so funny. He says, Daddy, you can go to Tesco's now. They've got no arrows. You won't get in trouble. Oh, that's because I'm going the wrong way, not because I was photographing them. Nobody in the family escapes. So this is my wife. She decided to return to work as a nurse. So that was getting a uniform. That's not related to anything. That's just when I've been bored in the garden. Empty Manchester. Again, this guy, walk your dog, empty streets, but why walk your dog when you can carry it? Brilliant. Yeah. And that's Deansgate. So that was taken at, I think, 12 o'clock in the afternoon on Deansgate. So we intend to go back and reshoot that in maybe years to come and see the difference,
Yeah, you won't see a single bit of time.
Again, this was a car park. I just pulled up to get a view of the town. And as I drove into the car park, there's a couple just exercising on top of the multi-storey car park, like private gym.
Yeah, definitely exercising. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're looking, yeah, definitely exercise. If you've got nowhere to sunbathe, you might not have a garden. Just get in the boot of the car. Why not? Find a sunny spot. Happy days. That was my dear old mother working from home. Again, I'll always go out and try and photograph the moon if the moon's around. So I had to go out and do that. There's a VE Day celebrations, socially distanced, of course. And these are the scanners down at the airport in Manchester, like the heat scanners and things, and departure halls, arrivals. And again, going back to the people that were sort of dressing up, you started to find lots of things taking place outside hospitals. So people would turn up outside hospitals on a Thursday and they'd be clapping, and then all of a sudden like a Scottish Highland band would turn up, and it all started getting a bit crazy, to be honest. These guys would all turn up, and yeah, it was all going a bit nuts. And again, this is like more food donations, collecting food for vulnerable people, home testing kits.
There's lots of solidarity there, isn't there?
Solidarity, I think, is the key. You know, that's like what you saw, really. Loneliness on the outside, because there was just no one around, and the few people around, they didn't have people to speak to. Like this poor chap, he's not got anywhere to sit down. They've not even saved one single seat to sit on, you know. And then all this kind of stuff started springing up everywhere. Playgrounds, you know, the grass was growing on the playground because it hadn't been played on for so long. Again, clapping. And more recently, I've been doing a bit of work with a mental health charity called the Anthony Seddon Trust in Ashton-under-Lyne. It was set up by a couple whose son committed suicide following mental health issues, and it's just grown and grown. It's getting bigger and bigger all the time. And they've been doing so much good work, but they've really been struggling to continue with that, because obviously the work relies on people coming into their centre. It's a drop-in centre that anybody can attend, and they have like counselling sessions, cookery sessions, music sessions, all sorts of things. I mean, it's fantastic what they do, but they've not been able to reach the people that they normally reach. So to get around that, one of these ladies, she's been cooking like ready meals every day. So they'll prepare 2 hot meals every week and send them out that day for people. And then the other days they're preparing sort of sandwiches, food boxes, that kind of thing, so that the people that normally come to the centre have still got some kind of contact with somebody, and are still able to receive the provisions they need, really. So I've just been trying to do a series of portraits, really, just on volunteers and the people that have been turning up, because none of these people are being paid. They're all just turning up and doing this in their own time, you know. But this is the guy that runs the centre that sort of took this chance to extend the room and renovate it, because obviously they've not got people in there at the moment. So they're thinking, well, might as well make the best of this downtime, and if we need to make improvements, we can do that now. But yeah, they're a great bunch of people, and they're always working hard and happy to help. Just a few more shots from the airport. I've been there a couple of times. Somebody you may recognise, homeschooling. Like I say, nobody escapes. Everybody gets roped in. Food deliveries, again, isolating people. This guy's great. He goes out twice a week with his wife delivering food all around Ashton and Stalybridge. Again, the sort of solitude, isolation, kind of like sums it up quite nicely, I think. That was in Southport. And this was the one game of football I've actually shot. I was lucky enough to do one game of football, purely because it was a draw. My name was drawn out of the hat, so I got lucky, so I managed to get in to shoot it. And obviously with everything that's been going on recently with the Black Lives Matter campaign, it's not something that's really affected Manchester and the Northwest. Obviously there's been a lot going on Birmingham, London, overseas. But this is the only sort of thing I've shot really that's had any kind of connotation to that. But I just thought the fact that, well, you'll never see this picture again. No. You'll never see football played in an empty stadium like this, and the whole, you know, the players taking a knee, kind of, there's 2 stories happening at the same time there. So I just thought that was a really interesting image. And again, the sort of isolation, solitude. This is a woman that was, I was shooting the job for another reason, but the picture just stands out. It was a newborn baby who's being treated, and he's still on a tube, so he's not able to be moved. But yeah, having to wear a mask to like nurse your own child just seems like crazy. And one for any Liverpool fans out there might appreciate the next couple of pictures. This was a woman I found who decorated a house, so she agreed to let me stand by her back door to do some pictures of her just watching the game. This was just as Liverpool scored. So once they'd won, it was down to Anfield then just to see what was happening outside. And as you can imagine, there was plenty happening. Like on, it just got busier and busier and crazier and crazier. Yeah.
So there you go, that's especially for Janet Woods, just to wrap things up today.
Yeah.
Your own very special, private.
Yeah. I'll send you I'll make sure you get a copy, Janet, one way or the
Yeah.
other.
From two magazines, no less.
Yeah, and again, just a few more portraits of. Recently, I've been photographing people that have been unable to return to work. So they're all set up, they're ready to go. This woman does like meditation sessions. So she's demonstrated, look, I can set this room out, everyone can sit 2 meters apart. There's no reason why we can't sort of go ahead with this. And recently they have been allowed to start now. This was taken probably a few weeks back when they were still saying, well, how come these people over here can do this and we can't do this? And that's still quite a big issue at the moment, I think. So yeah, there's a few pictures of these guys. And obviously the barbers returning to work was a story.
Yeah.
Pubs reopening was a story. This was Weatherspoons, where better to celebrate your marriage, Weatherspoons. What I like about this is central Manchester, and they decided to use the bus stops as seating areas because they'd closed the street. So
Brilliant.
you can just sit in the bus stop, have a pint, happy days. And again, this is a local food bank that's been set up. This is a new one that's just opened in Staley Bridge in a shipping container. It's run by a local guy, who's really good, Steve Barton. And the last thing I've done really is just highlighting what's happening in schools with the way that lessons are now being taught, the way that the classes are separate. And I think the most striking thing is lunchtime was the time that you sat together and you used to have a laugh, you used to speak, catch up, what you've been doing. And it's like complete opposite now. You kind of, it looks like they're in prison or something. It's, yeah, strange existence. Interesting times.
Well, listen,
and that takes us back to the beginning. So yeah, I've been trying to keep myself as busy as possible until sort of the work starts coming back in, really. But I think I'll definitely still be involved with this kind of stuff and definitely make more time to do more of the sort of charity, local community stuff. I've been giving the pictures to like the local papers, just saying, look, you know, there's a great story here. This guy's set up this food bank. You've got to put it in the paper, even if it's a little thing, just, you know, do us a favor, stick it in. So they've been getting stuff in the local papers and generating interest and stuff. So that's been really nice. So hopefully more of that as well in the future.
Yeah, there's been lots of that paid forward, haven't there? And people, I think, just understanding what's sort of truly important in that respect. So thanks for sharing. It's been a perfect timeline. A perfect loop almost from that initial shot of that initial shot of the gentleman with the mask on. I think, you know, the final game you shot there, one person in the stadium with a mask on, you know, right through to that first game you shot with nobody in the stadium.
Yeah.
It's almost like a perfect timeline.
Yeah, and everything that's happened sort of between that to get from that point to the other. Yeah. Well, I'd just like to...
Thanks.
Oh, pleasure, mate. Always a pleasure.
Cool. All right. So that's it for Spring Break Extra episode 5, I think. We'll look forward to episode 6 coming up next week. When we, I think we dive back into the gym world and the fitness world. But for now, thanks, Anthony. And we'll see you soon, Spring Breakers. Cool.
Happy days.